So, I've played Armored Core 6, and long story short, the game is just good.
Great, an independent merge. There's no wise guy on the side of the red that should be taking care of some free loot. Independent mercenary, why be a mere pawn? My honor is them in serving corporations that exist only to kill and plunder.
I've never felt so privileged to show off a game before. I know I'm biased since I have this channel and everything, but the game is just so special. It marks the point where an old franchise is coming back to life. It represents a genre that so many new people will get to try for the first time, and yet it's still undeniably a From Software game, with so many familiar hallmarks of their modern game design. But if you are a newcomer to the series, you might be thinking that this combat and UI is overwhelming, and you're right, it is. But trust me when I say that it's worth taking the time to understand it all. So let's start at the beginning, with the very first mission of Armored Core 6.
Now, activate the AC.
The game starts with you being sent to infiltrate the planet Rubicon 3. But it doesn't exactly go according to plan. Clearly, the Rubiconians don't want anyone entering their airspace. And it wouldn't be a FromSoft game if you didn't start the game half dead already.
Descent to ISB 2262, Rubicon 3, complete.
Your position is grid 135. Off target, but within permissible range.
The man speaking here is your handler, Walter, and you are his hound, trained to follow his every command.
Time to fly, 621.
With this, we're shot closer to where we were supposed to be.
If we get our hands on Rubicon's coral, we'll make a killing. Plenty for a merc with a fried brain like you to buy their life back. Enough chat, back to work. Scavenge the AC wrecks ahead and find a valid mercenary license. We're illegals here. You'll need ID to operate.
This is the mech you start the game with. It has an assault rifle, a laser blade, and multi-lock missiles.
An AC! Where the hell did that come from? Affiliation unknown. Shut it down!
Guerrillas from the Liberation Front. If we get in the way of our work, eliminate them.
In this next section, I'll try to break down how the game plays.
I'm picking up signals from AC Rex. Follow the markers.
What I'm doing now is called an assault boost. It's the most efficient way to cover great distances. It's also really, really good in combat. You can even dodge during it, like this. If you come to a stop while grounded, you will walk, like this, but gliding with your boosters is generally better. And this is your quick boost, your dodge, and then there's one button to jump and ascend. All of this requires energy, which recovers really rapidly while you're grounded.
There! That's the AC from the report! Find out who they're working for.
Looks like they've got shields. Good thing you've got a blade.
This marks the first AC wreck that we've found.
Extract the pilot data. I'll analyze it from my end. This one's already expired. Keep looking.
So, there are multiple paths through this huge city, and it's swarming with enemies.
What?
Vintage! We got something good!
Get out of there! You can handle them!
That's the PC UCA's planetside force. Keep a low profile. We don't want them breathing down our necks.
Thanks to the dialogue in this game, missions are really engaging. Either Walter's telling you something, or you're eavesdropping on enemies, or your foes are freaking out because they have to fight you. It's fun.
Corp license, easily traced. Forget it.
Let's talk missiles. By default, all missiles go to a single target like this. But if you hold down the fire button, you can launch at multiple enemies instead. You're going to be outnumbered a lot in Armored Core, so staying mobile and constantly firing off missiles is just a good way to play.
Stompung and Schneider are on the move. Corp AC. Wait, is that an independent? Destroy it!
I overcome multiple enemies here by firing missiles and by making use of line of sight to avoid enemies while I reload.
Light shoulder ammunition at 50%.
Let's see about this license. It's still valid, but the pilot's rank is no good. We can't use this.
There's one last AC wreck to find, and this is the pilot whose legacy you pillage to obtain your new name.
That's it. Try accessing the wreck.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, it's time to prepare for a boss fight. So, as you can see, I've toggled on my target assist, shown here. This is an automatic hard lock mode that's great for focusing on a single enemy.
Rank fits the bill. Call something. What? Looks like they were onto you after all.
It's your typical early FromSoft boss, an enemy that you probably won't be able to defeat unless you're comfortable with the fundamentals of the game.
You've got them now. Make it count 6-2.
You need to always keep moving to avoid enemy fire. Get hit too many times and your stability will break. Watch and listen for warning signs. Try to stay close and use your blade. Use the environment to block enemy attacks. And while all of this is going on, you need to make sure that you're using all 4 of your weapons efficiently so that you can break through enemy defenses and deal massive damage.
Registration number RB23. Call sign Raven. Authentication complete. Removing MIA status. Restoring access privileges. This is Allmind, the mercenary support system. Welcome back, Raven.
If you've played previous AC games, you know how good it feels to hear that. After you've listened to all of your new messages, you'll enter this, the garage. Here, you can customize your AC, you can sell its old parts, you can buy new parts, and inevitably you'll realize that the new parts are too heavy for your legs, so you buy new legs, and on it goes. You can get lost in a sea of complex cost-benefit analysis here, or you can kind of just buy the biggest gun you can carry and remember that red numbers bad, but blue numbers good, and get by that way instead. Whatever your approach, it's surprisingly fun once you get a feel for what every part does. But that's not all you can do in the garage. You can also practice in the training simulator, you can earn upgrades in the arena, and you can replay old missions. And then, when you're ready, you can sortie onto your next mission. Except, I can't show you the next mission. I actually can't show you the next 4 missions. I can only show you 20 minutes of footage from missions 1, 6, 7, 8, and 11, so please forgive me for all of the screenshots that I've been showing you to save time here. Anyway, over the course of the next 4 missions that I can't show you, I worked my way towards constructing an AC design that I call Black Flint. This build had gotten me through previous Armored Core games, so I figured that it would be able to get me through this game as well. I love this build. It basically uses 2 sets of small missiles to break open enemy defenses, which often enables me to land direct hits with the bazooka and assault rifle. This build was more than enough to take me past the final boss that we were allowed to fight in Mission 11. The end, but not really, because simply beating missions isn't really the end game in Armored Core. The real test of your skill is replaying those missions and attempting to achieve a perfect S rank in them. I felt like there was a chance that I might unlock something cool if I S ranked a few missions, so I gave it a shot. To better my chances of this, I decided to quickly create a set of 4 diverse builds that I thought might be better suited to each mission. So I made a tank build for Mission 6, a flying quadruped for Mission 7, a lightweight melee build for Mission 8, and a heavy energy weapon biped for Mission 11. Let me take you through each mission with these builds, starting with Mission 6. In true Armored Core fashion, each mission starts with a briefing.
Got a job for you, 621. You're joining an operation planned by Balaam HQ. Check the briefing.
Heard the good news from Walter, did ya? Good. Sit your ass down and listen.
I can't show all of this, but basically, Balaam is one of the big corporations that wants to break through the locals' defenses here on Rubicon, and for this task, they've enlisted 2 of their own ACs, as well as you, an independent mercenary.
Main system, activating combat mode.
Balaam Group AC Squad Red Guns reporting for duty. Commence mission. Attack! Get in there, you maggots!
Great. An independent merc. He's the wise guy who decided the Red Gun should be taking care of some freelance.
Who gives a shit? We'll handle this mission ourselves. 1 target destroyed.
Hey, freelancer, but no one even told you why we're here. Well, us real Red Guns are gonna go climb the wall. This is just target practice. When we're done, the locals' little base is next.
Goodbye. Can't take yourself away from chatting with a tag-along? Why don't you start a sewing club together and stitch that damn mouth of yours shut?
This mission does a great job of characterizing Balaam's Red Gun group. Your teammate, Gun 5 Iguazu, talks down to you constantly. You can tell he really hates that you're just freelancing for the highest bidder, whereas he's actually proud to be one of Balaam's own Red Guns.
Do you hear me, you corporate vultures? The Rubiconians will never yield. You're going home in armored coffins.
As I fight this enemy AC, I need to talk about these tread legs that I'm equipped with, so they really change how the game feels to play. It feels more like driving around in a vehicle with these, and there's an incredible sense of momentum and weight to everything, which then comes in handy whenever you decide to overboost charge into enemies like this. What's more, tank and quad legs absorb recoil from your weapons, meaning you can stay mobile while firing heavy weaponry.
Right-hand ammunition.
Damn you, scavengers!
Then I destroyed the dam, I completed the mission, and even though I thought I played perfectly, I only received an A rank. So I attempted to S rank this mission one more time with this, a reverse-jointed dual machine gunner. I danced circles around my enemies, and I ignored the AC fight at the end and simply focused on blowing up the dam as fast as possible instead.
No! The Gurlian Dam!
With this, I finally received my S rank.
You got lucky, Merc. You were the only warm body they could find. The Red Guns are going to be first over the wall. Have fun watching from the sidelines.
So, Mission 6 was handed to you by Balaam Industries, but in Mission 7, another corporation called Arquebus has tasked you with taking on the Strider, a mobile resource base that has been extensively weaponized by the Rubicon Liberation Front. To destroy this thing, you need to take out the Eye, a giant laser cannon shielded by 4 main generators. These are your first 4 targets. That is, if you can get close enough without the Eye incinerating you.
Picking up a surge of energy to the eye. Watch out, or it'll burn you to ash.
The sheer scale of this enemy is absolutely staggering. Previous games have had arms forts like this before, but they've never looked this good.
Alright, now you're up close and personal. Take out one of its legs and bring it to a halt.
We evaded the Eye's laser!
All hands, prepare for close-range combat. Intercept!
As you climb, you can hear the Strider personnel progressively get more and more panicked. They literally try to detach parts of the Strider to try and get rid of you, but it's no use.
We can't take the enemy AT! Remember, we fight for the total. Defend the sub-generator.
In my S-rank attempt for this mission, I made this energy weapon quadruped build. The unique thing about quadrupeds in this game is that if you tap the jump button while you're airborne, you can hover in place indefinitely. It probably goes without saying that, yeah, this was extremely useful in this mission. Just for some perspective, here's what I looked like on my first attempt. This goes on for a while, but even then, I still managed to destroy all 4 generators, and I managed to destroy the Eye.
It looks like all that energy was sitting on this nowhere to go. Well, 621, you need to get clear of the Strider. See that, 621? The Strider's blowing itself up. A fitting end for something built to fail.
With the Strider down, Arquebus are impressed with you, to say the least. This gets a foot in the door for your handler to ask for a spot on Operation Wallclimber.
Take out the Gatling cannons protecting the city, and the Baus Tetrapod MT further in.
Operation Wallclimber is epic in scale, not because you're taking out a large enemy or anything, but because it's a long mission.
You'll never climb the wall, Corporation dog!
First, you have to find a way to get behind 2 Gatling cannons defending the city. Then you have to break through the city itself, all while avoiding fire from the 16 or so snipers that are positioned on the wall.
We're under attack! They're in the city!
Just 1 AC. Arquebus. They're marking.
If you remember, in Mission 6, the Red Guns were bragging that they'd be the first over the wall, but if you take the time to explore the city here, you'll find the wreck of Gun 4 Volta, your Red Gun teammate, dead in the streets. I'm not sure what killed him, but the first real challenge for you is defeating the Tetrapod MT, who is tucked underneath the wall's main gate. These things are just so much fun to fight, and my build here actually excels at one-on-one combat. It has dual handguns and missiles to break the enemy's guard, and the pile driver which you have to pull out of the weapon bay at just the right moment. And then, after making your way all the way up and through the wall, it's time to face the final boss.
One of the infamous handler Walter's hounds. Interesting. You ready to climb the wall? That's the Juggernaut, heavy mobile cannon. I wouldn't recommend taking it head on. It won't be able to keep up with Steel Haze. I'll distract it while you hit its blind spot.
This boss is easy enough in the first phase when you have a co-op partner, but it's extremely difficult in the second phase, when your partner leaves.
Understood. Raven, I just got an update from Snail in command. We've got enemy reinforcements incoming. If I don't intercept
without V4 Rusty on my side, I failed my S-rank attempt against this mission. But when you fail a mission in Armored Core 6, you don't always have to start from the beginning. Usually you'll have unlocked a checkpoint and can just reattempt the part where you died with replenished health, healing, and ammunition. What's more, you're actually able to switch up your assembly mid-mission as well. So when I failed in my first playthrough on this boss, I simply switched to double bazookas and kept the Juggernaut staggered almost indefinitely. So yeah, checkpoints are a very powerful tool. And honestly, I think the game's difficulty is designed around you needing to make use of checkpoints. Checkpoints are what give From Software the design space to create long missions and difficult encounters within those missions. But naturally, if you die and use a checkpoint, then you're not going to get an S rank for the mission. So when I failed my S rank attempt, I simply switched to double bazookas again and overcame the mission that way instead. Might as well finish the mission and claim those extra credits, right? The last mission I can show is Mission 11, and it's another long one.
It concerns a certain facility, a Watchpoint. Once, it regulated the underground flow of coral. Now it serves to monitor the dormant veins.
The first part of the mission involves fighting your way through 2 fields of enemies who have long-ranged weaponry.
It's just one AC. Who are they with? We can look into that later. Engage it.
Later, there's a one-on-one fight against an enemy AC named Sula, who clearly has a history with your handler.
Attacking a Watchpoint. You're incorrigible, Handler Walter. How many of your dogs must I kill before you learn?
Is that Sula?
Pitiful dog. I feel sorry for you. I really do. You may have survived a little longer. If only you had a different master.
C-1249. Sula. He's an independent mercenary who survived first-gen augmentation. Don't think twice, 621. Kill him before he kills you.
Where's 619 and 620? Dead? Which ones did I kill, I wonder?
Don't let him bait you. Focus.
What of Gen 4's lot? I hear you make fine hounds with the right training. Shame you'll have to die here. Walter, stay away from the Watchpoint.
Confirmed. Enemy AC destroyed.
And finally, there's a boss battle, a bullet hell against the autonomous craft named Bolteus.
It's an autonomous PCA craft, Volteus. We'll have to locate the whole site. What's your chance with it?
Between the missiles, the shotgun, the assault armor, and the flamethrower, this enemy has an insane moveset. The way I overcame this on my first playthrough was by pivoting to dual assault rifles so that I could just mindlessly hold my fire buttons down and focus on predicting and dodging its attacks instead. And that worked. Just. And for my S-rank attempt, I created Samus, a plasma weapon build with dual pulse guns, a laser cannon, and a shield, and it was awful. Or maybe I was awful, I'm not sure. I had some really cool moments, but between dodging and flying and using my shield and charging my cannon and managing the overheat on my pulse guns, I think piloting this build was just way beyond me at the time, and I got hit a lot. So yeah, Even with the checkpoint system, the game is tough, and while I'm proud of the S ranks that I did achieve, I had no chance of S ranking any of the longer missions with the limited time that I had, because think about it, to S rank a longer mission, you need to conceive of one build that can overcome many different encounters, all without running out of healing or ammunition by the end of the mission, and that's really challenging, and I'm looking forward to attempting that come August 25th. Anyway, so I've used up just about all of the unique footage that I have to show you today. But I still have more to reveal, so if you want to stick around, I'd like to go over a bunch of game mechanics that I haven't mentioned yet, and at the end I'll also share some more deeper personal thoughts about the game, along with some details that I learned from an interview with the game's lead producer and director. So, do you remember when I fought an enemy AC back in Mission 6? His name was Index Dunham, and his was an optional AC fight where you kind of just overwhelm him with 2 teammates. So, this fight with an enemy AC is actually optional in this mission, but it's still absolutely worth doing at least once because you see this little icon here? That's a combat log marker. It's a resource for something called Loghunt, which rewards you with new parts for handing in combat logs and rising through the ranks. It's very cool. You can also actually rematch Index Dunham and a lot of other AC fights too, for that matter, in the arena, in glorious simulated 1v1 combat, which I don't think I'm allowed to show you. But I can show you these menu screens from the garage where it reveals that you are rewarded for these fights with credits, seen here, but more importantly with OST chips as well. OST stands for Operating System Tuning, which is another menu that's also accessible in the garage, and it's here that you can spend your OS chips that you earned from the arena across 4 different categories. First are system unlocks, which give you new baseline abilities. Some of these, like the boost kick and the weapons bay, I'd argue are almost essential. Boost kick lets you press your assault boost button at the end again to deal huge impact to enemies like this. And the weapon bay lets you equip arm weapons to your shoulders. Note that you can't fire these shouldered arm weapons at all times like you can with regular shoulder weapons. Instead, you have to switch to them manually and then fire them with your arm button. The next category are core expansions, which are these special offensive or defensive abilities. So I experimented with a few. I used assault armor, which does a huge AoE like this. I used pulse protection, which puts a barrier in place like this, which was really cool. And I tried terminal armor as well, which will keep you alive at 1 AP in a situation where you usually would have died. Finally, there are attack control and damage control categories, which simply increase the percentage of damage you can deal or the amount of damage you can heal, or they reduce a percentage of the damage you can take. So upgrading your operating system is a way to straight up make your AC a bit stronger or a bit more versatile, and this is in contrast to the general customization process where you go into the garage and every part is balanced by being strong in some ways but weaker in others. Next, I want to talk about energy weapons. Energy weapons do not work like they did in previous games. Back then, they required a piece of your actual energy bar to fire, and now it seems their gimmick is that energy weapons will overheat if you fire them too quickly, so they don't reload in the conventional sense, which means you have the option to either fire them until they overheat, or to use them sparingly to prevent them from overheating. Additionally, it seems like energy weapons can also be used to cancel out energy defenses of the same type, so pulse energy weapons will do way better against pulse defenses, it seems. Finally, let's talk lock-on. So lock-on is actually automatic, meaning as soon as an enemy is close enough and in your sights, your fire control system will target them. And as mentioned before, there's a soft lock state where you have more free movement, and there's also a hard lock state called target assist where your character and your camera will perfectly follow the enemy. To my knowledge, and after reviewing all of my footage, this hard lock cannot be broken, I'm pretty sure, and your AC will automatically quick turn to perfectly face your hard locked target at all times. So target assist is very powerful, and it's game defining, honestly. However, you might have noticed that a lot of the time I played with soft lock and I moved my camera manually with the right thumbstick instead. Now, I was pretty comfortable playing in this manner because that's how previous Armored Core games play, and I've played a lot of them, so it felt more second nature to me. And playing in this manner does give you some benefits. Your motion is a bit more free, and whichever enemy is closest to the center of your screen will be targeted, so you have more control over who you're firing at, which is especially useful when you're surrounded by enemies. However, there is a downside to moving your camera manually with the right stick, and some of you might be able to guess what it is. It's that your thumb isn't free anymore to press the face buttons that are very required for dodging and ascending, and you can't really claw grip because, remember, your pointer and middle fingers are on all 4 of the weapon triggers, so you can't really use those. So if you want to play soft-locked and control your camera with your thumb, it essentially means that your thumb will have to dart over and tap the buttons for dodge and flight while you're also controlling the camera, which can be done, but you have to stop controlling the camera for a moment to do so. Therefore, I think most people will naturally just gravitate towards playing with target assist turned on most of the time, so that they can be hard locked to enemies instead and not really have to worry about the camera. Yes, this means giving up a bit of control and aim, but it frees your thumb for dodging and flying, and I think those things are generally much more important. And speaking of aiming, let's talk about the FCS part. The FCS part essentially determines how accurate your aim is, and in this game, you see that little reticle trailing the enemy within my lock-on? That reticle is not always on point with the enemy. At certain ranges, it will waver or it will trail behind the enemy, and that means you'll miss. So each FCS part has 3 main variables. Its close range assist, its medium range assist, and its long range assist. Basically, these values determine how good your FCS will be when tracking enemies at these ranges, so you have to think very critically about what sort of weapons you're wielding when you make a build, and you also have to consider your FCS when you're thinking about how close you should be to enemies when you engage them. FCS parts also determine the time it takes for your missiles to lock onto enemies, and it also determines how long it takes to acquire a multi-lock on multiple enemies. Finally, I'd like to give some more personal thoughts on the game. First, the story. It's hard to get this point across with limited footage, but as missions play out and you're slowly introduced to all the characters and corporations who also have a lot of character, you really start to feel small, like you're some small piece of the puzzle within your handler's plans, who is himself a small piece of a larger corporation's plans, who are all a small part of this huge war over a resource that is unfolding on Rubicon. And that feels like a very Armored Core vibe to me, and I'm in love with the vibe of this game, and the amazing soundtrack also plays a huge part in that as well. In terms of endings to this story, I can confirm that the game will have multiple. And from my interview with director Yamamura-san and lead producer Ogura-san, it sounds like endings will work a lot like they did in the 4th generation of Armored Core, where new missions will be revealed in New Game Plus, and those missions can be used to take you towards different endings. I loved the replayability this brought to Generation 4, and the thought of having New Game Plus with unique content and enemies not just being more difficult is a really great thing in any of From Software's games, I think, so I love to see that. Next, let's talk gameplay. So, I could talk for an hour on this point, but what I really want to try and convey to you most is that the movement in this game feels really, really good, and it all comes down to the leg types. For example, when you're piloting a reverse joint leg build, you feel like your legs can just claw into the ground and fling you off to the side or high up into the air. And when you throw on a pair of tank treads, you really feel like you're driving a heavy vehicle with weight and momentum. The direction you're facing matters a lot while you're driving. And then if you want a feeling of weightlessness, to contrast that, I guess, you can opt for quad legs and rain down death from above and have virtually no recoil. I don't know of many games that let you fundamentally change the way your character controls, and the fact that it goes deeper in the garage is also amazing. You have so much control over so many variables of your movement and abilities because the expanded stat screens are back, and all of this just makes it so much fun playing with different builds, and the game will have a ton of replayability because of this fact. Next, considering the recent success of Elden Ring, a natural question a lot of people are going to have is, will Elden Ring fans enjoy Armored Core 6? And yes, I think they will, because while this is a very different genre of game, it's also the first Armored Core to have a lot of things in common with Souls. For example, Armored Core 6 now has a completely decoupled camera. Your mech has fast turning speeds. You can heal. There are checkpoints. Bosses have heavily telegraphed attacks. There's a visual stagger system, a timed block system, and a hard lock as well. And before anyone says, yes, I know that other games have these things, but Armored Core traditionally has not had those things. So the fact that From Software developed Elden Ring and now Armored Core, and the fact that I'm talking to a community of Souls fans, means it's fair to draw a comparison to Souls in this case, I think. And also, I know that a lot of people did not expect these things to be quite so present when Armored Core 6 was first announced, but they are here now, and it absolutely makes the game more accessible for Souls fans, and any modern gamer in general also. But what I'm really happy about is that it still feels a lot like an Armored Core game, even with all of those things. And most importantly, it's shaping up to just be a good game with those things, and I think that's all most people care about. This is just yet another familiar generational shift in the gameplay of Armored Core, and I'm here for it, personally. All that said, I do, naturally have some concerns about the game. These aren't like terrible problems or anything, it's more like these are things that I'm not really sure how From Software are going to handle. First and foremost, there's PvP. So 1v1 PvP in Armored Core has traditionally been about getting outside of your opponent's sights and outmaneuvering them. But with the way that target assist works in Armored Core 6, I don't really see a way that you can outplay people in this manner anymore. Because unless there's a way to break hardlock, and I don't think there is, you're just going to be stuck in their sights the entire time. So I actually got the chance to ask Yamamura-san, the game's director, about how skill expression in PvP would work with hardlock being a thing, and he replied with quite a few insights. So first, he stated that target assist actually forces you to move and fight with a certain angle of attack, so it's possible that soft lock could help you with your evasion. He also mentioned that flying over the top of enemies might help to prevent you from getting hard-locked. Now, I don't think this would really apply in 1v1 fights, but in fights with multiple people, being above them could absolutely make them less aware of you. So That's an interesting observation. Additionally, he says that in fights you have to consider enemy stagger meters and consider your own as well. So the way that you fire weapons to build up stagger and then make use of exposed defenses plays a role in skill expression as well, and you won't often just get away with firing all your weapons at once. And then there's also the need to maintain optimal distance, which plays a part in your accuracy and dealing the right amount of damage. Therefore, both players will be sort of maneuvering to maintain their own personal ideal distance at all times. And then there's just timing in general, which is also very important to dodge enemy fire, and you obviously have to time your own attacks as well, so that they land. Lastly, we've only just learned that Armored Core 6 will feature 6-player multiplayer, and I will say I think target lock, this hard lock, will be way less impactful in 2v2 or 3v3 combat, as those game modes will just have so much going on, and honing in on one player should matter a little bit less. But then, another reason I'm curious about PvP is I think it's just going to be really difficult for From Software to properly balance the fact that you can fire 4 weapons at once in this game. So when I asked Yamamura-san about the biggest challenges that they faced when developing Armored Core, he answered that balancing weapons was a key focus and challenge for him and the team. And I can see why, because in a lot of games, naturally there are overpowered weapons. It's inevitable. But remember, AC6 is kind of unique in that you can fire 4 of those weapons at once. So if you're firing 4 overpowered weapons at once, just think about how much that exacerbates any potential power imbalance. And in this online age, with people like me who are going to naturally talk about and recommend some overpowered weapons, especially in PvP, that could be an issue. So I think From Software will absolutely have their work cut out for them in balancing this game after release. And I think to be the best experience possible, this game is going to need more high-quality balance patches than they usually put out. But I'm sure they're aware of this. So in terms of difficulty, just in the general game, encounters definitely seem hard enough, especially when you sort of get past the beginning of the game, so don't worry about that. My limited footage naturally kind of shows my best moments, but you should know I struggled a good amount at times, trust me. Checkpoints make difficulty less inconvenient, for sure, but they don't reduce the difficulty of individual encounters, if that makes sense. They actually enable From Software to make them harder individual encounters. What I do think might be a bit overpowered about checkpoints is the ability to switch up your mech's assembly halfway through a mission. As a fan of the older games, I was a fan of not being able to change your mech and just committing to whatever build you bring in, and I think changing your mech is a little bit immersion breaking, and I think it might also risk being a little bit too forgiving, especially for players that understand how to build already, but it might be too early to say, and I could absolutely change my mind on that. The last thing I want to talk about is debt. So in previous games, I also really loved the threat of going into debt by playing badly and losing credits. That was a part of the thrill, really. But going into debt is not going to be a thing in Armored Core 6, so they've confirmed that. I also want to note that AC6 seems to be extremely generous with the credits that it gives you. Not only that, it is very easy to replay missions, and you can also sell parts for the same price that you buy them at, so you are naturally going to have a lot of credits, and that is by design. You can tell. I asked Yamamura-san about this, and he said that From Software felt that having too much debt might dampen the fun of the assembly aspect, and since the assembly aspect is like the main part of this game, and it's also the most potentially off-putting part of the game to new players, I can see why they got rid of debt. The benefit to having more credits is that you can buy more parts and experiment with things and just have more parts on hand to switch to in these mid-mission checkpoints, which is also a big thing as well. But do you know what else Yamamura-san said in response to this question? He admitted that he too was a big fan of the debt that you could accrue in previous games, and even though that was a punishing system, he said that he liked the feeling it gave, that sense of a severe, oppressive, mercenary lifestyle. And so the last point I'll leave you on is what he said right after this. He said that if they have some nice ideas in-house, they might try to revisit the concept of debt in some form in the future. So, Fires of Rubicon sequel confirmed? Probably too early to say for sure, but I know that employees of From Software have a really soft spot in their hearts for this franchise, and I really, really hope that Fires of Rubicon resonates with people so that they get the green light to make more of these games. Especially if it means that From Software might start reintroducing some of the more hardcore, more traditional elements of Armored Core. I know that these things can be off-putting to newcomers to the franchise, so I'm not surprised that a lot of them are gone, but it would be so cool if they, got you familiar with the game, with Fires of Rubicon, and then reintroduced some of those things. I think that would be fantastic. If you're curious what those traditional Armored Core elements are, then please consider watching my video where I play through every single prior Armored Core game. Or come and ask me in real time, because I should be currently live on Twitch right now, attempting to answer everyone's questions about my time with Armored Core 6. Other than that, thank you for listening to me ramble. Subscribe and be sure to switch on the bell notification so you don't miss new Armored Core videos, and I'll see you in the next one.